Hello, everyone. Welcome to Site 265 Fully Online. This is Professor DePaulo, and I'm going to be talking about writing the introduction section for those that may have been a bit confused with the written instructions. I'm going to go through it for you in video format. So, the first thing you're going to do is go under Assignments in your Blackboard page, whatever section you're in. Go under Assignments tab, see Assignments. And then under assignments, you're going to see the beginning, writing the introduction instructions. Then you'll see this submission site here and the due date. So this is where you're going to submit the PDF file of the completed introduction. What we're going to do first is we're going to go through the writing the introduction instructions, and I'll walk you through that and show you what you need to do. So click on that. So the first thing is we're going to be writing the introduction of an APA manuscript. The manuscript is going to be based on the survey that we're doing as a class that I've uploaded for you to take, the COVID health survey. And based on some questions that I had and measuring some variables that I wanted to measure, I'm having you complete the survey. And then I'm going to analyze the data from the survey, and that's going to be our research project, our experiment. And I'll be doing all the data analysis, and you're going to be writing up the different parts of the paper, like you're going to submit it for a journal, like you're going to publish it. Obviously, you don't know what you're doing right now, so it's going to be a rough draft. I'm going to try to guide you through how to write it up, and then I'll be editing each of your submissions, sending you back feedback and comments on it, and then you'll be doing a final version that'll be due at the end of the semester. And your grade will be split 50-50, 50% based on the rough draft grades and 50% based on the final copy, the revisions. So we're going to start with the introduction. You don't need the data to write the introduction, so it's easy to write the introduction. What we need to do is start off defining the problem. Now, the whole introduction should be approximately 3 pages in length, double spaced, and it should be formatted the way I'm setting it up for you. If you go over 3 pages, it's okay. Just don't give me like 20 pages. You can go a little bit over it if you need to talk more about what you want to talk about. But I don't expect like something significantly more. And I would also make sure you write a minimum of 3 pages, because if you're not writing 3 pages, you're not really doing enough in terms of the literature review. So the first 2 paragraphs of your introduction should be defining the problem. So you're going to introduce the topic and why it's important. Well, this is probably the most important topic, I think, of any kind of psychological research in the long history of psychology, because it's based off of COVID. I'm not saying that, I'm over exaggerating that point, but what I'm saying is that this is a very important problem in terms of what predicts health behavior during COVID. Why are certain people wearing masks and other people refuse to wear masks? Why do certain people socially distance and other people don't care? People are out going to bars, going to parties, being in close proximity of other people, while other people are scared to go anywhere. And it's not really a black or white issue like that where it's one or the other, but why are people more willing to take risk? What's predicting the risk taking in this group of people? And what do we know about them so that we can lower risk? Because the more people that take risks, the more the virus spreads, obviously, and the longer this thing goes on. And we've seen this in the summer where the cases were dropping and people got all excited and they wanted to go out, and they're going out like nothing ever happened. And then, the hospitalizations are through the roof all over the country. It's a mess, and it's been a mess. So as a researcher, we want to know what predicts this kind of behavior and what we can then eventually do to prevent it. How do we get people to take less risks? And what is the target population that we want to look to intervene and decrease their risk or increase their safety behavior. So the reason why the problem is important is because it's dealing with COVID-19, and COVID-19 is a pandemic that we have never seen for 100 years, and it's killed 500,000 Americans, over 500,000 Americans. And, unfortunately, it's killed many people that I personally know, and maybe you personally know, and ruined our lives. And it's been a pretty miserable experience for everybody involved, and it's just a torturous experience. So there's a lot to write here. I just want one or two paragraphs about why it's important. And you could talk about COVID here, and you could talk about health behaviors increasing COVID deaths, something along those lines. There's plenty of research on that. You can find it through Google Scholar. You can find some of the stuff through PsycInfo too. The two things that I talked about in the video in the past where you were doing the lit review. So here you're just extending that literature review from the discussion board that you did, where I had you do 2 articles, and you're extending that more geared towards this problem, which involves 5 articles. So you want a minimum of 5 articles, research articles, not newspapers, not magazine articles, that are talking about research that we want to study in terms of COVID and health behaviors. And I'll talk more about the hypotheses later on. So you want 5, minimum of 5 articles. You want 1 large paragraph for each of those 5 studies. So paragraph 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, each paragraph is going to be based on a study, an article that you find that you're going to do research on. You're going to read the article and you're going to summarize it in 1 paragraph. Is this the best way to do an introduction? Like if I were to submit a manuscript, is this the best way I would do it? The answer is probably not. There's a more efficient way. So instead of organizing the paragraphs by article, I can organize the paragraphs by theme, but that's a much more difficult process for undergraduate students to accomplish. So the best starting point here is find your 5 articles. You probably have 2 of them already from the literature review. So if you did those 2 summaries for me for discussion board 2, you can reuse that. And then you just need 3 more articles. Write me a summary for each article for those 5 paragraphs. So that middle 3 to 7 paragraphs here is just literature review. And those articles should be around COVID health behaviors. We're looking at gender, age, race, ethnicity, anxiety, generalized anxiety, health anxiety, somatization, depression, attachment style, empathy as possible predictors for this health behavior. And there's plenty of research that's out there now because the whole world is basically doing research on this. So you don't have to worry about that. There's plenty of research out there. So go find it. Go read the article. Read the abstract first. If you read the abstract, the first paragraph there in the article, and you find that it's relevant, then read the article. And when you read the article, focus on the introduction, the method, and the discussion. Don't get bogged down on the results because the results section can be very confusing because they're throwing in like a bunch of high-level math and statistical stuff, and that might be confusing to you to understand. So focus on the introduction, the method, and the discussion. And if you need to skip through the results, skip through the results because the beginning of the discussion should summarize the results. So you should know what they found in that beginning part of the discussion. And when you do these summaries of these articles, talk about what what was the design of the study, what was the methodology, what they found, what were the conclusions, and if there were any limitations in the study, you can put a sentence in about that. So 1 large paragraph per article. So you want 5 articles, 5 paragraphs. That makes the bulk of your literature review. That's paragraph 3 through 7. Paragraph 8 is the purpose and the hypotheses. So this is 1 paragraph stating our hypotheses. So all you have to do here is basically state the purpose of the current study, which is investigating COVID health-related behavior, and then list out, not list out, but write them in paragraph form, the hypotheses. So here are the hypotheses I'm giving them to. Empathy will be positively correlated with mask wearing. People high in health anxiety will view COVID 19 as more lethal in the general population. So that basically, if you're worried about your health, you're going to see danger when it comes to COVID. Uh, Age will be negatively correlated with dining indoors. So that's not just dining indoors, but it's basically going out indoors to a variety of places. So the older you are, the less likely you're predicted to be, going at indoor dining or going to parties indoors, or going to weddings, other functions, maybe spending more time indoors in store shopping. I'm predicting that this is negatively correlated. So basically, the older you are, the less likely to do that. And so the younger kids are going to be out more. And finally, attachment anxiety will positively correlate with socializing with family and friends during the pandemic. So if you have attachment anxiety, you kind of need you're afraid of being abandoned. You're afraid that people will reject you. In relationships, you tend to be clingy. So these people that are high in attachment anxiety probably do not like to be isolated. And so they're not going to stay home by themselves during the pandemic. Maybe their anxiety towards relationships will prove to push them to become more social. So they may visit family more and friends more during the pandemic, uh, spend more time with their significant other, even if that involves engaging in a more risky activity. So they're not going to just sit home like some people might. So those are our hypotheses. You can put them in a paragraph form. Write them out. Do not make like a list. Don't write 1, 2, 3, 4. Write them in a paragraph form. And that's your last paragraph. And these hypotheses here, we can actually find articles based on some of this stuff. So if I'm looking for articles, let's say I want to look at empathy and mask wearing. I can very simply do that by going into Google Scholar. You could use PsycInfo too if you want. And I could put empathy and mask wearing in there. And this brings up a bunch of results. Now, you would want to read the abstracts first. So let's look at the first one. The emotional path to action. Empathy promotes physical distancing and wearing a face mask during the during the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's click on that. And you can read the abstract here. So this is talking about how they're minimizing close contact between people, but social distancing and wearing masks. And in this research, they tested the idea that physical distancing and wearing a mask can be the result of pro-social emotional process called empathy for people most vulnerable to the virus. And they looked at a sample of 3,700. So they looked at a pretty big sample, Western population, and they found that empathy relates to motivation to adhere to social distancing and wearing face masks. So that makes sense. That's what I would predict, that empathy is positively correlated with more preventative COVID related health behavior like distancing and face mask wearing. Now, this is an article you might want to use. Let's go back to the Google Scholar page. So we read the abstract. The abstract looks good. You see this says PDF here. That means it's free. Do not pay for any articles. Not all the articles listed in Google Scholar are going to be free. If you don't find the article in Google Scholar, you can search PsycInfo for the same article. If we subscribe to the journal through CUNY, you'll find the article available on PsycInfo or PsycArticles databases, and you could download it there. Sometimes we don't subscribe to a journal and they make you pay for it or do interlibrary loan. It's not worth it. I put an interlibrary loan request already last week. I didn't get it yet. So it's not worth even bothering with interlibrary loan. It's very slow, I think, especially during this time because people aren't on campus. It's probably even slower than normal. So just move on to a different article. if you can't find it. If it's not free and it's not either in Google Scholar or in the uh, PsycInfo Psych article through the library, move on to a different article. Do not pay for anything. If it says PDF here, it's free. If it says HTML here, it's also available. If it says nothing, then it's probably not available. They're going to make you pay for it, don't pay for it. So this one says PDF. I'm going to click on it. It's going to give me the whole manuscript. So this is like a preprint. So it's not published in the journal yet. This is what they submitted to the journal. So it is the full article, but it's what was submitted. So it's in a PDF format. You can read through this and give me a summary of it in a paragraph form. So what was the study about? What was the design? What did they find? What was the main result? And are there limitations? If you can find them. So you're going to have to read through this. Don't worry too much about the results. Okay, because some of these results, they're using a shaded area here. This is a weird way to generate results. But what you can do is read through the discussion if you don't want to read through all the results, because they're doing some weird things with graphs here. So you get through all the results and you get to the discussion, general discussion, and read through the general discussion. They're going to tell you what they found. So you don't have to go through all the numbers, because the numbers sometimes the graphs and the numbers are confusing. And those are things that I like to look at, but you're just starting out, so you need to maybe not obsess over the numbers. If you can't understand it, just move to the discussion and find the sort of take-home point. That's all I'm looking for. One large paragraph for each study, summarized. And then cite it. Please cite. So author, comma, date. So if you're citing this article, you need to put the author, last name, comma, the date. Because eventually these articles are going to go in your reference page at the end of the paper when you submit the final paper. So that's basically what I'm going to ask you to do. We looked at empathy. Another hypothesis is health anxiety. You can look at health anxiety and COVID-19. There's tons and tons of research on this now because the whole world is interested in this problem. Not just me, the whole world. So a lot of psychological research is in this area, and something that I've been looking at and trying to maybe think of doing some stuff on my own, given that it's an interesting topic and I'm a health clinical person. So this is a good way just to get you guys to collect some data. I threw together a survey just to collect some data, see what the preliminary results show. And if the preliminary results are interesting, then I can pursue this as part of a larger project. But for this class, it'll be interesting to write this kind of research up. And you get to also read through the literature on psychology and COVID, which is the number one problem we're facing. So I think it's good for you guys too to get experience reading research articles and synthesizing, putting things together, summarizing, understanding things, and then writing it up. I think this is a really useful course for that purpose. And then when you get to the four-year college, you'll probably have to take the four-year college research methods course, which will be structured similarly to what I'm doing, maybe a little bit less sort of. I tend to do a lot of step-by-step stuff and guides and videos. I don't know if you're going to get that at the four-year college, but you'll have an idea what the APA manuscript is like. So let's go back. So that's basically what you have to do for these 8 paragraphs. And let's go back to Blackboard. And once you're done with this, you're going to go to this introduction. So save your document as a PDF file. And then when you're done, you're going to upload the PDF under introduction here. You're going to submit it, click on this link, and then you're going to be done. And then I'm going to get the introduction. I'm going to read through it. I'm going to give you suggestions. And there's always suggestions. I mean, I don't expect anything perfect or near perfect here. I just expect that you've gotten the 5 articles, that you did a good job summarizing them, right? And now you put your hypotheses at the end that I provided for you, and that your writing is good, that I can follow what you're saying. Make sure you're citing each article, author, comma, date. Make sure it's double spaced. Check for grammar, spelling, all that stuff. I mean, look, I'm not crazy. I'm not like an English teacher here. But if you write something that is just poorly put together, there's many grammatical errors and there's spelling errors, it makes it harder for me to read it. And it just makes it look sloppy. So please, write it up and then go through it again and try to make it as good as possible the first time through. I'll give you a grade for it. I'll give you feedback, and the feedback will be applied for the final paper, which is due at the end of the semester. So what you could do is once you get the feedback, you can make the changes. Make the changes, according to the suggestions that I'm telling you, and that'll be part of your final paper. And then you won't have to do it all at the end. That's what I suggest you do, is make the changes during the semester as I give you feedback. And then at the end of the semester, you won't have to do much in terms of assembling the final paper because you've already worked on it throughout the entire semester. And that's basically it. So hopefully that helps step by step and, listening to me talk about it. If you have any more questions, let me know. It's due at this date and this time. You submit it here under assignments, under the assignments tab. And that's about it. And that's where the video will be placed. The video will be placed right here by the instructions, the PDF document. So if you have any questions, let me know. If not, I'll see you online, and we'll be talking about the method section shortly.